I'm Ashley Chancellor.
I'm Dakota Chancellor.
And we are Collateral Gaming. Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast, so smoke it if you've got it. Legally, that is, Collateral Gaming does not endorse any illegal activities. However, we do understand that the listening and viewing experience of podcasts is best enhanced by certain recreational, all-natural substances. However, if the consumption of such substances is illegal in your state or country, then understand that you are doing so at your own risk.
Yeah, but we here at Collateral Cinema, we condone all of it. Everything. The whole gamut. Whatever you want.
Oh, goodness.
My name is Ashley Chancellor. Fun fact, I once possessed 0.001% of Shaggy's power when I cosplayed him at a party.
Bullshit.
Now, I run a pseudo-successful podcast, so make of that what you will.
Yeah, pseudo. Pseudo being the key term there.
Yeah. Oh.
Pseudo podcast.
I'll accept it. I'm here today with the other half of the Chancellor brothers, Dakota Chancellor. And we're also chilling here with Bo Maddox and Robert Ortegon of Collateral Cinema.
Hey, everybody.
Yo, yo, yo.
So we decided we'd go ahead and give them a couple mics, let them punch in some comments here and there. It looks like Bo is playing the game that we're doing right now. What do you think about that?
It's interesting so far. I just talked to this Santa Claus-looking motherfucker here. He's sitting at a campfire, and I'm just running around in a nice little valley or something.
Well, if you couldn't figure it out already from what Bo has given us, this wonderful description, but what game is it we're playing, Ash?
The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
Woo!
This is a game I have been super stoked to talk about. This is one of my all-time favorite games, if not my all-time favorite game, right up there with The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. They're kind of tied at the first spot equally in my mind. But ever since we thought up to do this podcast, I've been thinking about doing a Zelda game, and we put a poll up there. We let the people decide because I put my two favorites out there.
Yeah, that was it, your two favorites.
And, well, actually, there was a tie, but due to a tiebreaker with one of my friends, the public decided that Breath of the Wild was the first one we're going to talk about.
Yep, don't worry, we'll still talk about the other one later.
Oh, yeah, next season we're going to do Majora's Mask, and then the season after that, we'll be doing another Zelda, and we'll just keep going.
We'll keep going. There's so many Zelda games, might as well just keep it going, you know?
Speaking of which, The Legend of Zelda, that's something I really want to get into. I set aside a whole talking point just to introduce Zelda, since this is our very first Zelda episode this season. Dakota, now, you're not nearly as involved in the game fandom, but I know that we've both played a lot of Zelda. I know that I've introduced you to a lot of Zelda. And what do you think?
Oh, I love Zelda. I love the lore, the story, everything that goes on in the games. I started with, which one was my first one? I believe it was Wind Waker.
Wind Waker was my first.
I think Wind Waker was my first as well. I played Wind Waker, and I played a little bit of Spirit Tracks, Phantom Menace on the DS.
Yeah.
I had both of those. That was fun. And then I played the original Zelda. And then I played a little bit of Ocarina of Time. And I loved them all. I mean, they're wonderful games.
Did you say Phantom Menace?
I did.
That's Phantom Hourglass, bro.
Oh, whatever.
You're mixing up fandoms.
Stop thinking of fanboys.
Star Wars.
So, The Legend of Zelda, this is a game series that's so beloved by the game community. I mean, every game that comes out, every mainstream title gets a 9 or a 10 out of 10 in most gaming magazines and game reviews.
Well earned.
Yeah. This is a franchise that's been going strong for over 30 years now.
It's crazy.
In fact, the very first game of the series was released on this day, 1986. Of course, I'm speaking from the point of view of the day I'm going to be recording this. It's actually the day before Valentine's Day today for us.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
But for y'all, it should be February 21st, which is the day the very first Legend of Zelda game came out, the Hyrule Fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
And the gaming community has been rocked ever since. In fact, this is a series that in many ways has influenced the gaming industry of today, the action-adventure genre,
puzzles,
even high fantasy as it's represented in gaming.
Yeah.
So, and with each entry, like I said, the games are highly praised. They're always giving great scores. This isn't another series like Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed where they're just pumping out titles every year. Instead, these games are built from the ground up it takes them years. You know, every Zelda game, every main series Zelda game uses a different engine.
Every single one.
They don't reuse assets.
How many of the years did they spend making Breath of the Wild?
Breath of the Wild. Let's see. The first time it was announced was, I mean, it would have been even before that, but it's been out there for at least 5 years before it came out.
Yeah.
It was sitting around. They had announced it, that there was going to be a game, you know, and everyone expected it, of course, after Skyward Sword, after which they released several other titles in between.
Multiple, yeah.
Of some like portable title, handheld titles, in order to keep the fans from starving.
Yeah, what? Link Between Worlds, right? That was one of them.
Yeah.
I remember that one. I never played it, but I saw you play it on your DS.
But what sets Zelda apart? Why is it so beloved by the gaming community? Well, being one of the defining action-adventure games to exist, it sets quite a few tropes, and several of those are really what makes gaming so special. I wanted to be a game designer because of playing The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. I remember coming into it, and for the first time, like, I just felt so invested in the storyline. I felt like, you know, I was in the first dungeon, Dragon Roost Cavern. I really felt like I was this boy who had been thrust into this world.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're totally right. You feel so involved in the story.
Such an immersive feeling, and that's just only made better by, and in ways defined by, the puzzle-solving aspects. Now, for me, I've always prided myself on appreciating intellectual type things. I know that comes off as a little pretentious, but I like to be challenged. I like my brain to be active. And so for me to pick a game that I love so much, it really had to do something for me. And I immediately got that with Zelda, the sense of figuring things out, you know, solving the puzzle, and then the rewarding chime at the end. Did you know that, I believe it was Miyamoto who said that, or may have been Aonuma, who said that intentionally making the player feel like they're smarter than they are.
You're right.
Is a key aspect of
important.
Solving puzzle type games. Even if it's something that, you know, would normally be considered simple, if you present it to the player in a way, in that aha moment, and you make them feel smarter, you've accomplished something.
You know what? Playing Breath of the Wild, I really felt that. I mean, I would finish a shrine, you know, and I'd be like, wow, how did I figure that out? Like, you know, it just, you're using your brain in great ways, and it's pretty cool.
Do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yes, exactly. Every time you hear that noise, you know,
Yes.
I did something right.
So not only that, but it's the amount of effort that goes into each game. It's the deep story that's interwoven. And even though gameplay historically has always come first with Zelda, story remains just as important. And the developers are definitely concerned with producing a story that's worth telling for generations, a legend.
Oh, yeah.
The history of the royal family of Hyrule is also the history of the Calamity Ganon, a primal evil that has endured over the ages.
That look on your face tells me that you have no recollection of me, however. I think you are now ready. Ready to hear what happened 100 years ago.
Everything I've done up until now, it was all for nothing.
You must save her, my daughter.
Open your eyes.
Now, one of the most beloved titles in the Zelda franchise itself, of course, is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This is a game that has stood on a pedestal for a very long time. It's a game that's been considered the definitive Zelda. It was the transition from 2D to 3D. It was, for a long time, considered the most revolutionary title in the series. I mean, you've heard all about Ocarina of Time growing up.
Oh yeah, and to think that it's stood on this pedestal that you mentioned for so long. I mean, it came out on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time.
Well, and the main reason why it's defined that way is that it set the standard for 3D Zeldas.
Right.
And so you have the Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, even Skyward Sword to an extent that use the same format that was started with Ocarina of Time. The same basic control scheme, the same concept, the same ideas. And that hasn't really been redefined since this newest one, Breath of the Wild. Now, Breath of the Wild can now be considered, I believe anyway, the next revolutionary entry in the series since Ocarina of Time. And in many ways, it takes the game from what would be considered the stage before, I don't know, the 3Ds to the HDs, or you could say to taking the series to the true open world as it's defined today. And it does so by completely refreshing the series in so many ways. I mean, right off the bat, Dakota, you've noticed quite a few changes.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you there's different things you do. Like, for instance, in this game, you have the runes versus the actual items, right? There's the same tropes, the same, always having like bombs in the game, for instance.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that stay the same. The way puzzles are done, dungeons, a boss at the end of every dungeon, the same tropes, same kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, so it combines some things that are completely new with some series staples that it manages to maintain. And yet it's so different that several gamers felt like it didn't feel like a Zelda game. That's a common argument I've seen. And I was tempted to think along those lines too, just because of how different it is from the Ocarina of Time staple.
Right.
Which in and of itself is kind of its own era that just ended now. An era that we thought would continue forever. But of course, after a while, ideas get stale. And what happened with Breath of the Wild is it changed that formula so much that people felt like, this is a good game. I hear this often. This is a good game, but it's not a Zelda game. I have to completely disagree.
Yeah.
Because you have to go back and remember what truly defines Zelda. And to do that, you can't go back as far as Ocarina. You have to go as far back as the original.
You're right.
And I've played the original, which is a lot to say from someone born in 95.
Yeah.
After it was released. But I've played through the original. The difficulty curve was something that truly impressed me and gave me this sense like, games used to be more difficult than they are now. But that isn't true either.
Yep.
It's a pendulum. And in many ways, as the market continues to focus on the more hardcore gamers, we see the pendulum swing back in the favor of high difficulty.
Right.
And so Breath of the Wild definitely brings that difficulty back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things. It's actually a meme at this point. How many ways you can die in Breath of the Wild.
You're right.
Right off in the beginning, you can get killed by any enemy. You can get struck by lightning. You can fall to your death on a wet slope from raining.
Oh yeah. I mean, just in the beginning of the game, you'll fight enemies and they can kill you in one hit.
And the one way in which the game is introduced harkens back to the very first game in many ways. In fact, some people felt that this game wasn't in of itself a remake of the original. And it's not. I think it's a separate enough concept. But the one thing it does definitely harken back very intentionally is that you're thrust into a world with almost no instruction.
Right.
And there's help for people that want it, but the game doesn't hold your hand either.
No, you're right. It doesn't. I mean, there's a kind of a linear path you should take to, learning the story, But at the same time, you can do whatever you want. You can skip whole tutorials.
Not only that, but the dungeons can be completed in any order.
Any order, you're right.
And if you want, as soon as you get out of the tutorial segment off the Great Plateau, you can go fight Ganon.
Yeah.
You'll get your ass whooped, but you can fight Ganon. So, Dakota, now you haven't completed the game 100%. I just started to get you to play this week.
Oh, yeah.
But what are you most impressed with so far?
I love how this game sets like a whole new staple for the open world feel. You know, like when we played Fable, I loved it. Felt open world, but this game it sets a whole new staple. It sets a whole new way of imagining Zelda. You know, you start off in an area and then you fly off of it, and it's just once you leave the Great Plateau, it's like you have so much to do. You don't know where to start. You know, there's so much going on. It's such an open, beautiful feeling, and I love that.
Certainly. I think it definitely sets a new standard for both the open world format and the Zelda formula.
Right.
And we're going to talk about the former in a little bit here, but in particular, thinking about what makes a Zelda game, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, dungeons for sure.
Dungeons, yes. And that's really the meat of gameplay here. And in many ways, Breath of the Wild kind of, I don't want to say diminishes that, but it makes so many other things also important that in a
Right.
way, it's not that the dungeons disappear into the background, but well, let's just talk about it.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and say it.
So the thing with Breath of the Wild is that it only features 4 dungeons, which is unusual. In Zelda games, we're used to 7 to 12.
Right.
And these dungeons aren't in any way particularly longer than some others in the series, but they are very interesting and they're very new.
Right.
In previous entries, of course, especially with the Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time standard, dungeons were usually set around the mechanism of an item.
You're right.
And there was that aha moment where in the middle of the dungeon, you acquired said item, and then you were able to turn the tables on that dungeon in order to access new areas. And then finally, you would generally use that item to defeat the boss.
Usually, yes.
Now, we've still got somewhat of that structure here. I mean, we've got a dungeon, we've got a key ability that allows you to turn the dungeon upside down, literally in this case.
Literally. Yeah, you use the map.
And then that's followed by a boss. In this case, though, there are no longer dungeon items, as the dungeons are meant to be played in any order that the player desires.
Yes.
Even more free than the very first Zelda game was, where you could complete some dungeons in different orders, but there was somewhat of a structure. There were
Sort of.
certain dungeons you could only do before others. In this game, those 4 dungeons can be completed in any order as soon as you get off of the Great Plateau.
Yep.
And the key to turning these dungeons over in this case are the dungeons themselves, because the dungeons themselves are called the Divine Beasts. There are 4 of them, Va Rudania, Va Meadow, Va Ruta, and Va Naboris. And they are these sort of giant automaton animals that are part of an ancient technology, which is a motif in this game, of course, is that there's this ancient technology left behind by the Sheikah, who are always a cool race, right?
Always have been. And it's weird, this ancient technology. It's almost sort of it's a new age, this technology, but there's some sort of magic involved, it seems, almost.
Yeah, and in a world that's dominated by magic, of course, you would expect the high technology may be powered by that magic in some way.
Exactly.
And the Divine Beasts retain aspects of both of those, but very mechanical.
Oh, yeah.
And so the Divine Beasts are the dungeons themselves, so you are going inside of the giant robot animal.
Yep.
And there's usually some key aspect of the animal that can be changed. For instance, Valmetto, who's a bird, can tilt its wings, which would allow it to steer, but within the inner workings of the dungeon, allow you to reach new places by having the entire dungeon shifted, tilted. Not dissimilar to the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time.
Oh, I remember that, actually.
Yeah, the one where you could be turn the whole thing upside down.
Yes.
And then the Stone Tower Temple in Majora's Mask, which can literally be flipped.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, Majora's
so
Mask.
it's not the first time this aspect has kind of been explored, but it's put to great use in this game. It's not the gimmick of one dungeon. It's the environment of all of them.
Yeah, all 4 of them are that way.
Yeah. And so you have like the wings on Valmetto. You've got a
Trunk on
trunk for Varuta, which is an elephant, and the trunk can spill water into the dungeon.
Yeah, which is actually useful for puzzles and whatnot.
Which makes it a water dungeon that's actually a really fun water dungeon.
Really, really, really fun water dungeon.
And water dungeons in Zelda are typically frowned upon.
Mostly, yes.
Because they're usually very, very frustrating. Fuck you, Water Temple. No, I'm just kidding. I never really had a big problem with the Water Temple, but then again, that may have been because I was back in my consulting walkthrough days.
And you just love a challenge. Well, I guess back then you didn't if you consulted a walkthrough, but
Well, I'd get a little carried away and I'd look up one thing and I'd be like, oh, let me do exactly what this says because I just love following instructions.
cheater.
I know. I felt like I was cheated out of my Zelda experience because I consulted a walkthrough for so many of the ones I originally played. I no longer do. I figured shit out myself.
Right.
But anyway, that's actually a fun water dungeon. And then we've also got our fire dungeon, which is Val Rudania. You're about to go into that one.
About to, yes.
And that one's a lizard, which can turn between 0 and 90 degrees, which changes some aspects of the dungeon.
That's cool.
And then the final one is Von Naboris, which is a camel, which has these rotating midsections that create electrical currents whenever they're rotated a certain way together. You'll have to play it.
Yeah, to understand that.
But so far, the 2 dungeons that you've completed,
Von Meadow and Von Ruto.
what did you think?
Oh God, they're awesome. I started with Von Meadow, which was the flying bird. And that one was a really good one to start off with because it really gives me a taste of how these dungeons are. And it's in the air. It's completely in the air. This ancient beast. And so you fly up and you get to it and you would get ability where you can fly up eventually. But I noticed immediately the motifs, the tropes between different Zelda games as soon as I entered the dungeon. You notice that pretty immediately.
Yeah. And Val Meadow is commonly chosen as one of the early ones, either Val Meadow or Val Ruta. I would most recommend as some of the starting points because the learning curve isn't too hard on those, and the abilities gained from those 2 divine beasts are
Super important.
very important to have early on.
Mm-hmm.
So you get your updraft ability, Rivali's Gale,
Yep.
and the healing ability, which is kind of like a fairy, which is Mipha's Grace.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also, of course, get Urbosa's Fury from Vonda Boris, which is an attack that kills all the enemies on screen by charging your attack.
That's cool.
And then you get Daruk's Protection, which is like the shield around your character that protects you from all damage until that has to cool down.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of like Nehru's Love. No, those 4 divine beasts may seem like a little, though, because there's only 4, and like we said before, they're not incredibly long, not any longer than any other dungeons in the Zelda franchise. But those 4 main dungeons are complemented by 120 mini dungeons known as shrines. Now, the shrines range from just very small dungeons in their own right, with their own puzzle-solving motifs, to one single battle.
One single battle,
which is kind of a mini boss battle.
Usually, yeah.
And so they utilize all of the major incorporating features of the game. Mm-hmm. And of course, chief among those are what really replaces the items in the series, which are, of course, using the Divine Beast as well.
Yeah.
And you get those from the first 4 shrines that you complete on the Great Plateau in the tutorial segment. Mm-hmm. And those are the runes, right?
Runes, yeah. You get your 2 bomb runes. You get your remote bomb. Well, they're both remote bombs, but one of them's your sphere bomb, and then you get your square bomb.
Yeah, that's basically one rune, but it's separated into 2.
They give it to you in the one shrine, but it separates into 2. There's your Magnesis, right? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah,
that's
Magnesis.
Magnesis, and that's your it's kind of self-explanatory. You can pull things towards you and away from you. Things that are made of metal.
You can lift and manipulate.
Yeah, you can.
Freely.
It's like, what is it? Telekinesis, but with metal things.
Yeah.
There's stop time one, which is stasis, allows you to any moving object really you can stop time and you can stop it, and it's really helpful for a lot of puzzles. One of the big aspects about that ability, that rune, is that when you stop time, you can actually usually hit the item, and you can hit it enough times that it'll actually, whenever the time unfreezes, it'll be hit in the direction of what you were hitting. Right. So you hit it a bunch of times, and it's gonna go flying once the time is done.
Yeah.
And then there is Cryonis. And Cryonis allows you to build little water towers out of ice towers out of the water, which is pretty cool. And it's pretty helpful because there's also some points in the game where you fight enemies who throw ice blocks at you, and you can also shatter them. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a hidden feature for that one. So yeah, you've got your remote bomb, which is of course your Zelda bomb, but it can be detonated remotely, and it comes in 2 forms: one that rolls and one that stays in place.
Which allows you to have 2 bombs out at once.
Right, and you can have 2 bombs out at once and detonate them separately.
Yeah.
And then you've also got, like Dakota said, your Magnesis, which allows you to fully manipulate any metal objects, which is useful for creating platforms and moving heavy objects,
right?
Opening certain metal doors, things like that, certain mechanisms. There's Stasis, which obviously has a lot of uses. You can keep moving platforms in place, stops gears, and build up kinetic energy in an object to send it launching.
That's it, exactly. See, I gotta say, that's gotta be the most useful rune.
It's definitely the coolest ability, and it's one of the most game-breaking ones,
Oh
too.
yeah, it
But
is.
not completely game-breaking because a lot of it's intended.
A lot of it is, agreed. You can tell. You can tell a lot of situations. You're like, I can use that here, you know? But sometimes you feel like, wow, this was just like so easy, you know?
Yeah.
But that's really what their intention was. I mean, there's other ways you can do it, other ways you can pass puzzles. I think you mentioned that this game has, you know, multiple various pathways at which you can do things, complete
Yeah.
puzzles and whatnot.
Most of the puzzles are intended to be solved a certain way, but there is more than one in the game where you can solve it an easier way. I remember in Va Meadow, there was this really complicated puzzle that, you know, I didn't immediately remember how to do. And before I knew it, Dakota had already solved it by using stasis.
Yeah.
Build up. But like that's in the game, and I've seen some things like people about to launch an object using stasis and then getting on top of the object and launching themselves up into space.
Yes.
So that's a really fun ability to talk about.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember lifting a door once in one of the puzzles with stasis when I shouldn't have. You know, there was a little hole underneath, and I put bombs under it, and I put it in mode, and I lit the bombs. They went off, lifted the door, and I got under the gate in time. It's pretty great, actually.
There's actually a shrine that works like that uses
Really?
a bomb to lift up an object.
Oh, that's cool. What I was supposed to do was stasis, actually. Or not stasis. Cronus. Cronus. I didn't realize it, but there's a water puddle underneath. So
Yeah.
like, I could have just used the ice tower to lift it up, but it was cooler my way.
Yeah, and then there's Cryonis, which, as we said before, allows you to create ice pillars in water. You can have up to 3 at once, and you can cross any body of water that way.
Oh yeah, it makes everything super helpful.
You can block projectiles to you coming quickly if you're in
Mhm.
water, and you can also use it to solve certain puzzles like lifting grates above water.
Yeah.
And those 4 abilities, those runes, are used throughout the 4 dungeons and throughout the 120 shrines.
Mhm.
Some of the shrines and dungeon puzzles resolve around different aspects and different mechanisms, but in general, the runes keep coming back. You can upgrade the runes even further to Remote Bomb can have a larger radius, and Stasis can be used to freeze enemies if you upgrade them. And there's also the Camera Rune, which allows you to take pictures of things, and you can then later use it as a sensor
Yeah.
to find the thing that you took a picture of, which is really cool. That's this game's version of the Wind Waker pictograph figurine.
Yes, I remember that.
Kind of a little bit of a staple in certain
bit.
games. So the shrines, to me, really are what turns this into a full-fledged dungeon adventure, even though they're isolated and they're in different spots, which also in some ways enhances the experience for me.
It really
anyway.
does, yeah, because you're going along, doing your going for the dungeons. You're on your way there, and you just see shrines on the way, and it's nice. You can just stop by, do them at your leisure. It feels like, and by the time you've gone to all the dungeons, you probably got most of them done by then.
Yeah, even though that is the case too. They make up for a complete dungeon experience, more dungeon content than any other Zelda game, in fact. And so I feel that this game is truly played if you complete all 120 shrines. Now, all but 4 of them are actually optional.
Yeah.
And several of them are well hidden and take quite a bit of looking around to get. You may not get all of them just through the adventure alone. You may have to wander off the beaten path. I think once I hit about 100, I started consulting a little bit online help to track down the last few ones.
I would too. I mean, it makes sense. Sometimes they're just hard to get to,
But there is an in-game sensor built for that. That's one of the items that you can set your sensor to
Right.
find, in addition to items that you take a picture of. So as long as you have that on while you're adventuring, it'll go off, and you really aren't taken out of the action. Most of the time, you're wandering the landscape to your next goal, but those goals are very major. You're usually trying to get to the next divine beast, and you're okay with getting distracted in the way between because you're exploring the world and you're looking for the shrines along the way.
Right. No. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. I mean, it's just they're kind of there, but it's they're on the way to your path, and it's nice because it's like you said, it doesn't take any time out of your day.
Yeah.
And it's nice. You get a spirit orb from it, which I guess we haven't explained yet. But from each shrine you get a spirit orb, and spirit orbs you can get up to 4 of those. Well, not up to 4, but if you get 4, you can go to a fairy, which are usually like a prey statue, like a fairy statue.
It's a goddess statue.
Goddess statue, that's it. And you can either get a heart container or a stamina vessel.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice.
Kind of similar to the pieces of heart in past Zelda games where you collected 4, or in Twilight Princess 5.
5, yeah.
And in the original, in Zelda 2, 2 of them. Usually 4, where you collect 4, same number, to form a heart container.
Right.
Which gives you more life energy, another heart that you can lose. In addition to being able to spend spirit orbs on the heart container, like the piece of heart, they can also be exchanged for a stamina vessel, which gives you, extends your stamina wheel and allows you to perform stamina actions like sprinting, climbing, swimming, etc.
Gliding.
Now, the stamina aspect was something that was hated in Skyward Sword. A lot of people weren't happy with it, a lot of people within the Zelda community. And although that was a high-praised game within the gaming community, within the Zelda community, it had several flaws in the eyes of many fans. I mean, I love it, but I definitely can see where the complaints are. And one of the complaints was the stamina, but this game implements it better because at least that stamina is expanded.
Right.
So this is the second game to feature stamina, but a lot of other games do too, like Skyrim, Elder Scrolls. And this game in many ways has been compared to Skyrim in terms of the open world scale.
Oh yeah, which is really crazy too, because I remember playing Skyrim for the first time, and it was revolutionary.
Yeah,
I played that game and I was in awe. When I first played it, I did so much in that game, and so to think that this game's compared to that is really interesting. Now that I'm older, I can see the comparisons. I can see why they see that. Makes sense.
Elder Scrolls really is one of those pioneering major open world games.
Oh, for sure.
Mainstream open world
That's
games.
another open world staple, just like Breath of the Wild.
And Zelda, for the first time, starts to utilize some of those open world aspects that are now commonplace in the era of gaming. I've said before on this podcast that open world is somewhat of an expectation now in the gaming world.
Yes.
And so it's hard to find a groundbreaking title nowadays that doesn't have open world aspect to it.
Right.
And that's a good thing because the open world format is one that's highly praised for ultimately giving the player the most amount of choice to be the player they want to be.
Exactly.
And some games give you more of the illusion of an open world, but this one really actually is really free.
Yeah, no, you and I were recording the commentary earlier.
Yeah.
And we started the game and we just had to look at how beautiful it was for a second. You start out and you look on a cliff and you just look out and you can see everything, and it's just so beautiful, and it's just this seamless open world where it feels like you just walk anywhere, which is exactly the case. You can walk to anywhere, and if you see it on the map, you can go there.
Yeah, early on when the game was announced, I believe it was an interview with Aonuma, who was playing the game with them, and he said that any mountain in the distance you could go to.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, there are game borders, but the world doesn't feel close at all.
At all.
You can walk across the entire map, which is bigger than Skyrim, by the way. Not quite as big as The Witcher 3 or Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah.
But it's up there with some of the biggest game worlds, and it's definitely the biggest Zelda game world to date.
100%, yeah.
But anyway, you can walk across from one side of the map to the other, and you can have activated every section, have gone from border to border, and yet not have explored every location in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Even after logging almost 200 hours of gameplay. Or was it closer to 500?
I think it was closer to 500.
Yeah. After logging almost 500 hours of gameplay, which is tracked in-game in the pause menu, and a feature that was added in a patch with the DLC that allows you to see the path that you've been on. And through that path, I was able to realize that even after playing through all of that, I hadn't explored everywhere on the map.
At all.
You could see the direct path that Link takes in the story, or within the map from the very beginning, and there were definitely parts of the map I hadn't explored yet. I could still... If I still had the game now, which I don't because my Switch was stolen, we had to play this on the Wii U.
Yeah.
But which is fine. It's still great. No problems with that. But anyway, if I were able to jump into that same save file now, I would still come to new areas in the map that would pop up with the words like you found a new location.
That's so crazy.
And I still had 450 or so Korok seeds to find.
God. Was there like 900 total, right?
This game has 900 Korok seeds, which are collectibles that allow you to expand your inventory for about the first half of them. And then the last half of them give you literally a golden pile of shit.
That's exactly what it looks like.
No, that's literally what you get. You get a golden pile of shit. That is it's called Hestu's gift, but it's very clear because it looks like shit, and the description of the item lets you know that's what you get for 900 Korok seeds. And the satisfaction of having wasted hundreds of hours of your life.
Hundreds of hours, literally.
I mean, there's no way you can get those without some kind of online help.
At all.
I mean, someone did, but I reckon the process was walk lawnmower style across the map.
Pick up everything, run to everything,
Here's something about that too, okay? When the game developers were making this game, they had a few people test and find the pathways that players least followed. The nooks and crannies they recorded from each of those players, those test players, and that's where they put the Korok seeds.
In the worst spots possible.
Usually the seed is associated with some kind of puzzle. It can range from diving into a circle of lily pads to lifting up a rock to throwing a rock in a circle of rocks to a block puzzle using magnesis, dropping an apple in a basin, picking an apple off a tree, literally anything.
Flying into a bunch of rings with your glider.
Yeah, there's these small puzzles, several variations of which hard to see in the environment, and you can come across it, and that's another thing that keeps you busy in the game. And they're like little puzzles, so it's still fun. Somehow this game really made that side questing not a hassle. And if there was any complaint I had about Zelda, it was that after playing games like Assassin's Creed, which does do a good job of making side quests entertaining and engaging, Zelda before kind of had a weakness of maybe making making it feel like subpar to the main story. This game doesn't. It solves that dilemma. And this is coming from my favorite game series ever. And this game completely trumps so many of the formulaic aspects for that,
Right.
and bringing it to the open world, taking ideas from other games but truly setting its own staple. And that's what Zelda does. That's what it's done from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Nintendo is seen as kind of a family friendly feature, and yet Zelda has been in our hearts. Even, people in their 30s, 40s. My dad played the original Zelda.
So what do you think about the game, Bo? I see you're playing it over there still.
Oh man, this is actually pretty engrossing. I mean, it's been a while since I played a Zelda game, honestly, and this is really, really cool. And I mean, I like the Wii U actually. I mean,
Is this your first time playing a Wii U?
yeah, it actually is.
It's actually a decent console. Just suffered from a bad lineup. I
Yeah.
really think so.
Yeah.
But Zelda Breath of the Wild truly starts from the beginning, goes back to the roots. And I think that's why it appeals to so many gamers of such a wide variety. New gamers, new Zelda gamers will like it. People like me that grew up with the Ocarina of Time format already having been a major staple and being an expectation are excited by the change. And then even old gamers that started with the original, like my dad, because it really harkens back to that. And at the same time, it's something completely new. And part of that aspect, like we said before, is the open world, is the ability to complete any dungeon in any order, and making the side quests engaging, the collectibles still entertaining. Nothing feels like a chore or a hassle in this game
At all.
and more often than not you find yourself wandering off the beaten path and still having fun.
Still, I constantly was heading to a dungeon, and every single time I was heading to a dungeon, I get taken astray doing something else. I'd see a new location, I'd see a tower, I'd see something. I'd go towards it, and every single time it didn't feel like you said like a hassle. It felt natural, it felt right, and as soon as I was done, it just went back on with the quest.
Nothing feels like a chore in this game. And so the side material is just as compelling and just as interesting as the main quest. Something that you don't see except in, Elder Scrolls, which we mentioned before. We're going to have to do an Elder Scrolls game like Skyrim.
We're gonna have to.
So the other important aspect, of course, of Zelda, other than world building, other than the gameplay, the dungeons, and the open world format that has persisted throughout the majority of all Zelda games. I mean, we can say that all Zelda games are in some way or another open world,
Right.
some more than others, but this one is the only one that truly meets the standard of open world as it's defined today. But beyond that aspect even, we've also got the story.
Well done there, young one. Now then, the time has come to show you who I truly am. I was King Rome Bosphoramos Hyrule. I was the last leader of Hyrule, a kingdom which no longer exists. The Great Calamity was merciless. It devastated everything in its path, a century ago. It was then that my life was taken away from me. And since that time, here I have remained in spirit form. I did not think it wise to overwhelm you while your memory was still fragile. So rather than that, I thought it best to assume a temporary form. Forgive me. I think you are now ready. Ready to hear what happened 100 years ago. To know Calamity Ganon's true form, one must know the story from an age-long past. The Demon King was born into this kingdom, but his transformation into malice created the horror you see now. Stories of Ganon were passed from generation to generation in the form of legends and fairy tales. But there was also a prophecy. The signs of a resurrection of Calamity Ganon are clear, and the power to oppose it lies dormant beneath the ground. We decided to heed the prophecy and began excavating large areas of land. It wasn't long before we discovered several ancient relics made by the hands of our distant ancestors. These relics, the divine beasts, were giant machines piloted by warriors. We also found the Guardians, an army of mechanical soldiers who fought autonomously. This coincided with ancient legends, oft repeated throughout our land. We also learned of a princess with a sacred power, and her appointed knight, chosen by the sword that seals the darkness. It was they who sealed Ganon away using the power of these ancient relics. 100 years ago, there was a princess set to inherit a sacred power, and a skilled knight at her side. It was clear that we must follow our ancestors' path. We selected 4 skilled individuals from across Hyrule and tasked them with the duty of piloting the divine beasts. With the princess as their commander, we dubbed these pilots champions, a name that would solidify their unique bond. The princess, her appointed knight, and the rest of the champions were on the brink of sealing away Ganon. But nay. Ganon was cunning, and he responded with a plan beyond our imagining. He appeared from deep below Hyrule Castle, seized control of the Guardians and the Divine Beasts, and turned them against us. The champions lost their lives, those residing in the castle as well. The appointed knight, bravely wounded, collapsed while defending the princess. And thus, the kingdom of Hyrule was devastated absolutely by Calamity Ganon. However, the princess survived to face Ganon alone.
Link, you are our final hope. The fate of Hyrule rests with you.
That princess was my own daughter, my dear Zelda. And the courageous knight who protected her right up to the very end. That knight was none other than you, Link. You fought valiantly when your fate took an unfortunate turn. And then, you were taken to the Shrine of Resurrection. Here you now stand, revitalized 100 years later. The words of guidance you have been hearing since your awakening are from Princess Zelda herself. Even now, as she works to restrain Ganon from within Hyrule Castle, she calls out for your help. However, my daughter's power will soon be exhausted. Once that happens, Ganon will freely regenerate himself, and nothing will stop him from consuming our land. Considering that I could not save my own kingdom, I have no right to ask this of you, Link. But I am powerless here. You must save her, my daughter, and do whatever it takes to annihilate Ganon. Somehow, Ganon has maintained control over all 4 divine beasts, as well as those guardians swarming around Hyrule Castle. I believe it would be quite reckless for you to head directly to the castle at this point. I suggest that you make your way east out to one of the villages in the wilderness. Follow the road out to Kakariko Village. There you will find the Elder Impa. She will tell you more about the path that lies ahead. Consult the map on your Sheikah slate for the precise location of Kakariko Village. Make your way past the twin summits of the dueling peaks. From there, follow the road as it proceeds north.
And we've mentioned before that Zelda's story is something that, I mean, it takes a backseat to gameplay, but in no way does that take away from it.
No, it's the story from Zelda is unique, very unique. I mean, there's the same trope of you have to save the princess, but it's the story behind it is so unique, and there's always Ganon, there's always Link, there's always Zelda.
Yeah.
But it's just so unique. The magic that's involved, you know, kind of the like this one has the ancient technology. I mean, that was just it's genius.
Yeah. And run us by that story of Breath of the Wild.
Well, in this game, you start out, you wake up in a little room. It's a shrine of resurrection, I believe is what it's called, correct? And you wake up there, no clothes, and
nippleless,
and you soon realize that you were put in there 100 years ago after the downfall of Hyrule,
the Great Calamity,
where Ganon takes over, Calamity Ganon takes over, and he destroys everything, rains hell,
wrecks shit,
exactly,
fucks bitches.
Exactly. But all this time, Zelda locked you away, and you and a bunch of other champions, which I'll get to in a minute. But Zelda locks you in the Shrine of Resurrection because she's fighting Calamity Ganon in the Hyrule Castle the whole time.
Yeah.
Entire 100 years, she's fighting him, and so you get out and you have to go help her while she's tired of fighting him. You know, she's about to give up, and you are the last hope.
What's her
Hyrule.
secret?
What is her secret?
What's her secret? How does she still look the same age after 100 years?
That's a good point.
I mean, Link was in a Shrine of Resurrection. I mean, I guess he was kind of kept in stasis.
Yeah.
Is Zelda like sealed in time?
I guess so. He's
frozen?
Kind of like a time loop of fighting Calamity Ganon.
Maybe so.
Something like that. That's some Doctor Who shit right there. But anyway, yeah, and so, you know, your goal is to go through all the dungeons, which each of the dungeons has an ancient beast, which were taken over by Ganon.
10,000 years ago, there was this advanced technological civilization,
right,
ruled by the Sheikah, and they developed these machines known as the Guardians, which were meant to protect people, and the Divine Beasts, which 4 champions of each race could pilot.
Right.
There was a princess, there was a hero also during that time 10,000 years ago. Not much is known about that story. However, the champions were able to pilot the Divine Beasts and weaken Ganon, while the hero, some incarnation of Link presumably, and the princess were able to seal away the beast. Now, flash forward 10,000 years later, the Kingdom of Hyrule is in perfect order, but they come across some of these ancient designs. They unearth and excavate them. So this is 10,000 years after
the ancient
this ancient civilization, right? So society has reverted back to the medieval setting.
Right.
And they start utilizing the Guardians and the Divine Beasts. They hire 4 new champions who are going to fight Calamity Ganon, who is starting to become unleashed again.
Yeah, because they prior to that, like you said, the reincarnation of Zelda and Link, or I guess ancestors, whatever you want to call them, they had locked him away before under the castle.
Yeah.
And well, he's managing his way out, obviously, because he always does.
Yeah. And so Link, who is a knight serving the princess,
yes,
and Zelda, along with the 4 champions, Daruk, Urbosa, Mipha, and Rivali, who represent each race, the Gorons, Zoras, Gerudo, and Rito, respectively. I think I had those in the right order. Like that. They each pilot one of the Divine Beasts, and they're set to assault Ganon, and then suddenly, well, actually not suddenly, because Zelda had difficulty unlocking her power, and that is shown through the flashback scenes as Link awakens his memories. And we'll get to that in a second, but Link almost dies. And right at the last moment, Zelda finally awakens her power, which can be used to seal Ganon, but it's too late. And so Zelda has to put Link in the Shrine of Resurrection, and he sleeps for 100 years.
How did it come to this? The Divine Beasts, the Guardians, they've all turned against us. It was Calamity Ganon. It turned them all against us. And everyone, Mipha, Urbosa, Rivali, and Daruk, they're all trapped inside those things. It's all my fault. Our only hope for defeating Ganon is lost, all because I couldn't harness this cursed power. Everything I've done up until now, it was all for nothing. So I really am just a failure. All my friends, the entire kingdom. My father, most of all. I tried and I failed them all. I left them all to die. Link, save yourself. Go. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Run! Was that the power? Huh? No, no! Link, get up! You're going to be just fine. The sword. So he can still be saved.
Princess! Princess, are you all right?
Take Link to the Shrine of Resurrection. If you don't get him there immediately, we are going to lose him forever. Is that clear? So make haste and go. His life is now in your hands.
Now, none of this is given to you when you start the game.
None of it.
You start, and the only thing you know about Link is his name.
That's it, yeah.
Which,
It's kind of all you really need, you know? At first, you start the game, you're like, okay, fresh, clean slate, where am I going? And then you realize you have so much backstory that you don't even know, and it drives you to keep playing the game because you want to learn these memories,
yeah, pretty quickly, you get the main story in the beginning. So one complaint about this game is that in the very beginning, the tutorial segment, you not only get what's basically the whole story for the game, the major twist, but also all 4 of the abilities that you're going to use for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But in a way, that's just redefining what makes Zelda Zelda.
You're right.
And in any case, having found out that story, you get to learn more and more and more about the struggle, about getting to that point, and what ultimately led to Link almost dying and being put in the Shrine of Resurrection, even putting away the Master Sword.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, for the first time, is an optional item in this game.
Yep.
I think it's kind of necessary if you want to get the full story. But like I said, you can go straight for Ganon.
Yeah. Well, I think I really love what this game does is it focuses less on, you going towards, you fighting Ganon, right? You go to fight Ganon and that's the path you take. You fight Ganon, you save the princess, etc. This one, instead of focusing on the future, what you're going to be doing, it's like it's focusing on the past.
Yeah.
It's been so much time, you're learning your memories, what happened in the past, the ancient civilization, and then you learn about yourself and what you did 100 years ago and what happened 100 years ago. And you spend so much time learning about that you don't even realize that you're actually, about to fight Ganon.
Yeah.
And it's just, they did a really good job of that, I think.
And if we didn't make it clear enough, the entire game is framed by the idea of Link being completely amnesiac, not remembering who he is.
Right.
He knows as much as we know.
Exactly. That's why you feel so connected with him, because you learn with him, and that's why you feel so engrossed in the game.
And anyone that knows Zelda knows that Link doesn't speak, and yet we do get some insight into his personality, but in a way it also represents our own. He's a link between the player and the character, and he's his own character in his own right as well, in many ways. Maybe an idealized version of what every player would be. Courageous, which is his biggest attribute, of course. A little smarter, able to solve puzzles, and strong.
Right.
Now, there's another aspect, of course. I mean, with every Zelda game, we look at how they stand alone as a game, but we also look at where they fit with the continuity.
Right.
Of course, there is an official Zelda timeline. I remember spending many nights staying up trying to figure out how exactly the game's connected, because we have some direct sequels, Zelda 2 to Zelda 1, Majora's Mask to Ocarina of Time, and we have games that reference other games. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess both reference Ocarina of Time and hint at the split timeline that we all knew was a reality.
Of course.
Finally, after fans trying to cobble together for years, they've developed an official timeline. Nintendo finally released it. It's not perfect because, like I said, gameplay always comes first in Zelda, so the story kind of comes, afterwards, and even then, it's focusing on making a good story, a good legend to tell people, rather than trying hard to fit it in with the continuity. Link is not a static character. Link represents many characters, usually of which you can name whatever name you want, that are all reincarnations of the same spirit. Same thing with Princess Zelda, the titular character, and even Ganon or Ganondorf has been reincarnated, but is usually the same one.
It's usually the same, yeah, exactly.
In any case, these games fit together in a way, and they do make references to each other, and just because it comes third, how the game's story fits with the narrative of the entire series, that doesn't mean that it's completely overlooked. And I think a lot of people have this cop-out explanation which makes sense, but it's like, oh, well, the games are all a legend, and it's just people retelling. Well, no, some of the games reference other games.
Right.
And it does fit together. We had the split timeline, which made perfect logical sense.
It makes sense. It really does.
So when Nintendo released that official timeline, I was extremely happy about it. Some people were pissed. Some people felt like it was kind of cobbled together. I think there was a basic structure that was set. Definitely each main series game thinks about where it is in relation to other games. Sometimes they've retconned, but they've managed to keep together a basic structure. And then at the end, they realized that there were some loose ends, and I think they tied those up. I think the third split, the Downfall timeline, was kind of one of those cases where that was the only way they could cobble it together retroactively. But other than that, it has always been cohesive in a way, and
you can kind of tell that it was somewhat intentional. It really was. They had a plan behind it, and I don't think it was cobbled together. I think it's a smart timeline. I think they did a really good job, and they haven't given us an exact place for Breath of the Wild yet, but the theories that we have seem to make sense.
Au contraire, there has been a development, but I will get into that in a minute here. I think it was partially intention, but at times when they had to sacrifice continuity for gameplay or the story of that game, they did, and they did make some retroactive continuity changes, which is okay because it was still able to get fit together. So it's somewhat intentional and somewhat it was cobbled together a little bit.
Right.
But in any case, the biggest question people have had since before Breath of the Wild was released is, where does Breath of the Wild fit in the timeline? The short answer, it doesn't matter. That's the too long didn't read version.
Yeah.
And not in a sense that, okay, the timeline doesn't work anymore. The timeline is gone. We're retconning it. It still exists, but in many ways, this is a reboot of the series, which is another way that it makes it revolutionary.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right.
This relates to Ocarina of Time, which is seen as the keystone of the Zelda timeline. Pinnacle. So a game that could truly equal that would have to do something different, and that's basically rebooting the timeline without completely resetting all continuity. A soft reboot, per se. And the way it does that is what I believed before the answer was revealed was a convergent timeline. Those three timelines eventually converge, and the way in which that happens, at least is the way I can tell from what developers have said, and this is something, a theory I had before developers said anything, and it fit what they said later, and that was that after so many years, eventually the events of all three timelines happen. That's that age-old, no matter even if you change time, it always does the same thing trope. And Breath of the Wild makes references to all three timelines.
Right.
Adult, child, and Downfall timelines. And if you're a Zelda timeline theorist or fan, you may know what I'm talking about here, but it doesn't effectively fit in any one of the timelines. It makes references to the others. So the idea is that it's a convergence, not in the sense that some magical event happened that brought the timelines together, but in a sense that time always repeats itself. And so after however long it took to create an advanced civilization, tens of thousands of years, right? And then 10,000 years after that, and then 100 years after that.
They give you so much playroom with that.
Yeah. During that time, the events of every timeline happened. Hyrule was flooded, Hyrule was blanketed in twilight, and the hero died.
Exactly.
Allowing the Rito and the Koroks to coexist with Wolf Link.
Yeah.
Aspects of the Downfall timeline as well. So Ocarina of Time is the divergent point of the timeline. It's where the timeline splits. It's where before the unified timeline becomes 3, the only thing that could match that is a convergent point, and that's what Breath of the Wild is. That's why it's revolutionary even from the storytelling perspective. Now, story isn't completely incorporated in the game. The character development's awesome.
Absolutely.
But the story, I feel, was a little, I don't want to say weaker, it's just less entwined. And yet, at the same time, you create your own story.
I see what you mean there.
Yeah, and the very plot twist is given in the beginning, and I think that's why it feels that way.
Right.
But in different ways, it's revolutionized here once more, especially when you consider the timeline placement. And developers later went out and said that Breath of the Wild takes place in whichever timeline you want it to be. Mm-hmm. It can happen in any timeline, which I think means it happens in every timeline. Because if theoretically all of the events of all 3 timelines could happen in one, they could happen in any one of those, given that same amount of time.
Very good point.
Right? So I think that was as good as confirming the convergence theory. Some people are still sticklers. They think, well, it's Downfall. But I really think convergence makes the most sense. And I think that was 100% intentional. Or maybe 90% intentional.
Right, yeah.
Now, there is one more aspect of this game. And I know we're running on time here. But I mean, there's just so much to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
There's one more aspect, of course, which is the DLC. Now, Dakota, you don't know anything about the DLC. In fact, you haven't finished the main story.
I barely finished the main story, exactly. I haven't even.
But there was 2 DLCs that came out. I played them both as they came out. The Master Trials and the Champion's Ballad. Master Trials adds a Master Mode to the game, which is even more unforgiving.
God.
Harder enemies.
It's already bad enough.
Yeah.
There's some points where you realize, like, crap, this is difficult. This is actually pretty difficult. You have to be careful out there.
So I added the Master Mode. Also, the Trial of the Sword, which allows you to power out the Master Sword.
Nice.
And some other additional items that make life easier. A Korok mask that allows you to see where Koroks are at. A medallion that allows you to set a teleportation location anywhere.
The map location where it told you where you are on the map, where you walked on the map. That comes with the DLC, right?
Yeah. And then the second DLC is definitely the bigger one, and that's the Champion's Ballad. That adds a whole new storyline which focuses on the 4 champions and also adds a new dungeon. And the item you get from that dungeon is the Master Cycle. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. There's a motorcycle in this game. And it's an ancient technological motorcycle, but it's badass.
That's cool.
You can zip around the map in it. It's so much fucking fun. And yet it still takes a while to get from one end of the map to the other. Trust me, I tried it.
Wow. Who needs a horse?
Yeah. So the Champion's Ballad is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. Not just the motorcycle, but the whole extra dungeon. So there's 5 dungeons now. And technically, Hyrule Castle is also a dungeon.
You're right. That's
it actually is. It has a whole dungeon map. Although you can pretty much go straight to Ganon. But there's a shrine actually hidden inside Hyrule Castle.
That's cool.
There's like a dungeon in a dungeon.
Dungeonception.
So that being said, it's going to be a little while before we get the next main series Zelda entry. Obviously, they worked really hard on this game, and it took a while. But I think this is where the series is headed in the future. Yep. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, you can definitely tell, like you said, that Breath of the Wild, it paid off. The time they spent on it, it paid off. It's a great game. I think I could see they've got a lot to go on here. I mean, they've got 10,000 plus years to play with. They could add a game up in there, They could add a game post this, continuing on with the storyline. And I think, like you said, because of this new convergence idea, going with that, I see them, like you said, this almost a reboot. And so they can go anywhere. They can go anywhere they want. They can go through that 10,000 years. They can go to the ancient civilization before that. You can go wherever you want because they've given this soft reboot, like you mentioned. And they can go anywhere.
That's the best part about the timeline reboot. Like I said, the soft timeline reboot. That's really what I think is the best reason why this works so well. Is that not only does it cater to both the fans that love the timeline and don't want to see it go, and the fans that say, I don't want anything to do with that. But this allows the developers to go in any direction they want. Now they're not restricted by putting each entry in the complex timeline. They can say if it happens after Breath of the Wild or somewhere in that interim period, it doesn't matter which timeline it's in, which is nice. It allows you to reboot, but also they can go back and they can place a specific game anywhere they want to.
Yeah, they can still go back.
It's honestly the smartest thing they could have done. And so going forward, though, I really think that, story-wise, timeline-wise, we're probably going to go along the lines of from here on out, it probably won't matter too much.
Probably not, no.
But gameplay-wise, I think that this format, of course, is going to be adopted. I mean, Breath of the Wild was also revolutionary sales. I mean, you remember the shortage of Nintendo Switches when it first came out.
Yeah,
It was a bitch to get my Switch. Let me tell you, I paid an extra $100 for it.
Dang, that's crazy.
The reason why there was a shortage, the reason why they were selling so well was literally for this game.
Yeah, people bought Switches just for Zelda.
Even though it was on this game released on both the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch, a lot of people didn't have a Wii U because it undersold, and even I have a Wii U, and I bought a Nintendo Switch to play this game.
Yeah, exactly.
The aspect of being able to play a console Zelda game and take it anywhere with you is really cool, and the Switch takes full advantage of the game's graphics.
Absolutely.
So coming forward, I really think that this format, which caused the game to massively oversell, will be continued. I think, like I said before, since this was a revolution in the Zelda franchise, this is the format that's going to be adopted from now on. Ocarina of Time had its era where we used the same formula, but now it's time to move on, and it worked. That's what got me into Zelda, was that formula, and now it's time to try something new, and I think Breath of the Wild represents that. I think this open world format is going to be the standard. Of course, every Zelda game manages to make itself completely different. That's what I love about the franchise. Is they all feel different.
Every single one of them.
Even when they maintain certain aspects and they have staples.
Right. Like even with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. I mean, that was like, it was the same world, you know, but it's such a different game that you feel so, it's crazy.
Speaking of which, that's what I would like to see. If I could ever think about the perfect game for me, right? Because I said there's aspects I love of Breath of the Wild, and there's aspects I love of Majora's Mask for different reasons, and that's why they're my favorite games in the franchise. If you could take the open world of Breath of the Wild and combine it with something that was really unique, like Majora's Mask did, a special game mechanic unique to that game,
right?
That would be awesome. In fact, personally, I would envision an open world version of Termina.
That would be cool.
Utilizing the same Link from Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, the hero of time, who then comes back to the land maybe 7 years later, but like 70 or 700 years have passed for Hyrule.
Yeah.
I mean, for Termina.
For Termina, yeah. It would be nice to see, like you said, a way of making those games, you know, a lot, like making a game with aspects from both of those. You know, you play Majora's Mask and you feel the sense of haste. You know, you have to hurry. You have to get things done. And Breath of the Wild, they kind of give you that feel in the beginning, but you really realize that you can kind of do whatever you want for however long you want to.
And maybe this is nostalgia me and me talking, or the traditionalist in me, but I think a game in the future that took what Breath of the Wild brought to the series and combined it with some of the aspects that I grew up with Zelda, which ultimately were somewhat diminished in this game, but not necessarily as a negative thing.
Right.
But for me, you know, if this was up to me, the perfect game for me would be to combine some of those back, bring back a little bit of that item-based dungeon solving, that after I get this thing, I can open up more of the map as a whole. Like maybe you could do the first few dungeons, you can go anywhere you want, and then the world doubles and there's a whole new set of dungeons.
Yes, that'd be pretty cool.
And that would be in line with the usual Zelda mid-game twist, where your first quest kind of comes to an end and then you find out there's something completely different.
Yes.
Which is a recurring trope, of course, in the series. So I think that would be really cool, but definitely I think the format of Breath of the Wild is going to be used. Honestly, I know Nintendo are sticklers for not reusing the same assets. I mean, Majora's Mask was an exception.
Right.
Some of the spin-off titles, you know, do that, but they could honestly run a game at least on the same engine. I mean, Breath of the Wild is so huge. I know lots of players who said they wouldn't mind having the exact same world, but a new adventure set in it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like maybe like a new set of DLC or
Right.
something, right?
Maybe a relocation of some new shrines or whatever, you know. Maybe even have the same world, just like shrines different places, or maybe a whole new, not even shrines, maybe something else, maybe just a bunch of dungeons, you know.
That's like the second quest in the original Zelda.
Yes.
Everything's changed around.
Everything.
So that's what I would like to see, a game that incorporated, and what my idea was a Majora's Mask sequel, which itself is an Ocarina of Time sequel, but specifically set in Termina, but an open world Termina that's been aged by a few hundred years, but it's the same Link as an adult. That would be cool, and have some kind of time changing mechanic similar to the 3-day cycle, but not exactly the same. Another one would be a sequel to Twilight Princess that took place in the Twilight Realm, which we haven't explored before.
That'd be pretty cool.
Or a remake of the original Zelda told, with the same story, but expanded on and made into this new format. Because if you combine Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 somehow into one story,
Right.
one game, and the Zelda 2 map could actually be bigger.
It could be.
If they magnified it, right? Because even the original Zelda, I don't think is to scale. And the original Zelda map is a small section of the Zelda 2 map. So that could be even huger than Breath of the Wild if my measurements were accurate.
Imagine
if
that.
they magnified it at the right ratio.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah. But in any case, those are just kind of my throw off ideas. I love to throw in
Right.
with games I like, and I think that's going to be something I'm going to do in the future with the podcast is throw in my ideas as an aspiring game developer. What would I do? Where would I take the series? I often think about that and write that down in notes. But in any case, Dakota, are you super excited to see where Zelda goes next?
Absolutely. I hope they take their time making a new game. Not that I don't want to see a game quickly, but I want them to take as much care as they did in making it like they did with Breath of the Wild. I love the aspects that were in this game that, we talked about this sense of the less focusing on what's going to happen, what's happened prior to this, the working on the past, like I mentioned before. I think they could use a lot of that going forward. Like you said, use this game style, maybe even the same engine. That would be great.
Yeah. And I will say this, I have an answer for you, Dakota, about not having to wait for the next Zelda, but also having plenty of development time spent. And that's their pattern of releasing some of the handheld games. I don't want to say spin-offs because they're still considered entries in the main series,
Right.
but they're not the mainstream console games. And usually those are on handheld devices. Of course, now the Switch is both Nintendo's console and handheld device, but that'll be interesting. But they actually have already announced something just this week.
Really?
They're doing a remake of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, which
No
funny
way.
enough was already remade once.
It was already, it was, wasn't it?
Was the DX version, which was more of a port, but with some additions. It's going to be remade on the Nintendo Switch, making full use of the graphics. I saw the trailer. The opening segment, which is stills in the original game, has been changed to this anime sequence. It looks straight up out of an anime. And then the gameplay itself uses kind of this really cutesy, I love it. It's so cute. This like adorable, almost like toy-like style with kind of like these character eyes. Because Link's Awakening always had aspects of that.
Right.
It was the first portable game in the series, and it was a very cutesy game. Maybe intended at a slightly younger audience, but still very charming world, very family friendly, but at the same time, one of the darker entries because the entire thing was
That's crazy.
But in any case, that's coming out either this year or next year. I didn't look. That's been announced. So we're going to have that Link's Awakening remake on Nintendo Switch. That looks badass. That's one of the more overlooked entries in the franchise. So that's going to tide us over while they develop a new, bigger title. Mm-hmm. Now that we've discuss the future of the Zelda franchise, the only thing that's more exciting to discuss the future of is
our podcast.
Yes,
that's the plan. Yeah, we're gonna be a part of Chill Level Radio now that we talked to Chill up there, and it's gonna be pretty cool. We spent like a good hour and a half on the phone with Chill.
At least an hour and a half or something like that.
Yeah. He seems really cool, but he's gonna help us get set up. The Chill Lover Radio platform is gonna help us out, expand our reach, and we're also gonna give them whatever we can, which is maybe some more listeners. We definitely recommend any of the podcasts that are on the Chill Lover Radio
anytime.
And maybe next season we'll start doing some podcast shout outs as well.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, we started doing that this last season, and it's gotten quite a response, actually. I mean,
that's good to hear.
I'm thinking gaming should follow next season.
Yeah, for sure.
Start doing podcast shout outs. But we are super excited to be your new video game podcast.
Ooh,
we want to share the content with you. We want to get our Let's Plays out, our indie episodes out. And guys, if you have any feedback, let us know. Reach out to us. You can find me on social media, Ashley Chancellor. I'm available pretty much everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat.
Same here. Yeah, you'll find me anywhere.
Dakota's there too.
I'm tagged in all the Collateral Gaming, Collateral Cinema posts usually, so you should see me.
You can find Bo and Robert also. Bo Maddox, Robert Ortegon.
Oh yeah, certainly. You can
Facebook.
find us wherever.
You can find both Collateral Gaming and Collateral Cinema on those platforms.
Yeah, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, sir. And we're expanding. We're trying to get ourselves on more formats. Chill Lover Radio is going to help us out with that. Hopefully we'll get iHeartRadio, SoundCloud. We're really excited. And the thing we're most excited about, of course, is the next game that we're going to review for y'all.
Yep.
And what might that be?
Well, it's another ambitious game, I'll say per se. Maybe not nearly as highly well received. I know we haven't done a bad game yet. This one isn't really either. If anything, we're kind of apologists for this one.
We try to be because we were so hyped for it. We had huge hype. I mean, I pre-ordered this game.
Yeah.
But that's No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky.
Which it's a really interesting game because we'll get to it more in the podcast when we talk about it. But you want to talk about open world. This is open world. This is like algorithms of creating planets. You're in space. This is ridiculous. There is no end to this world.
It's a procedurally generated universe. Yeah. It's its own universe, and that in and of itself is cool enough. Although some people felt that it fell flat on the gameplay. We'll get to that next episode, and we'll let you know what we think about that. Spoiler though, we kind of like it. it.
A little bit.
But we realize what flaws.
Sounds interesting. I
Yep.
mean, you know.
Yeah, we ought to bring it in here for you guys to play it.
Yeah,
But,
that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I saw you put down the game. What did you think?
Oh, it was very interesting.
Did you die one too many times?
Maybe a few too many times. I don't know. I mean, you know.
I hear you. And Robert, what about you? I know you haven't played this game, but have you played any other Zelda games?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you're missing out. You're missing out.
So
You gotta
guys,
play one.
what's next from Collateral Cinema?
Well, we're taking a little bye week right now, or should I say a 2-week bye week or whatever. We're going to have an indie movie review. We're going to check out a film on Amazon Prime called Unlisted Owner, which is going to be pretty interesting. And I know that Robert's looking forward to that.
Oh,
right? Yeah, definitely. And we're also going to be doing the Steve McQueen cult hit Bullet. Robert, you're the one who chose that for the podcast. What do you have to say about that one? It's your movie, Holmes. Say something.
Movie.
I just wish we had it playing in the background.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
The famous bullet chase scene. I mean, we're going to see that. You guys are going to love it. Hope y'all love it.
We will.
Oh yeah, we will. We will.
And I'll show you the release of the bullet card
Ooh.
too.
Sounds good.
Ooh, that sounds
2008,
interesting.
and the commercial he came out with in 2005, which is weird because he died. And he died in 1980.
Yeah,
Funny how that works.
sounds about right. Sounds about right.
Well, that'll give you guys a lot to look forward to, and we're very excited to share that with you. Just an FYI on your note, Bo, Collateral Gaming will also be taking a sabbatical, or, not actually a sabbatical. Just
Radical sabbatical.
just a hiatus, just a 2-week
Yeah.
hiatus, which allows us to get ahead and
Play some games.
play some of the games that we're going to be doing this season. And I can also get that Fable 3 Let's Play out.
There you go.
I can get the infamous video podcast out, which I want to get out at least by the time I actually have this episode released.
Right. That's the hope.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I'll be playing some Zelda. I'll be playing more
Yeah.
Zelda. I promise you. I'll keep playing this game.
Yes, sir.
It's a fun game. I got to say.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
So if y'all haven't played Zelda, go play Zelda Breath of the Wild. In fact, if you haven't played any Zelda ever, I mean, obviously you're missing out. But Breath of the Wild is also a great entry point into the franchise. That being said, my name is Ashley Chancellor.
I'm Dakota Chancellor.
We are Collateral Gaming, and we are
Out. Laters, everybody.
Welcome to Collateral Gaming Extras, the part of the podcast where we all take a bath together.
Not again.
Oh God,
No.
not this nonsense. Come on now.
No.
Splish, splish, splish.
Damn it, Robert. Are we going to
Splash,
allow
splash.
this?
Dakota-
No.
No.
Splash.
Robert-
We cannot allow any of this. This is not
condone-
allowed.
We cannot condone this.
Did
No,
you?
no.
I think I dropped the soap. Will you pick that up, Robert?
No.
I'll rub your back if you wash your ankles.
Oh, okay.
The fuck?
Man, this is already devolving into some motherfuckery. Shit. God damn it.
Anyways, guys, we're chilling out in Section 9 Studios. We brought the bath here, actually. It's one of those portable baths. The water's getting a little cold, though. In any case, though, we just finished recording our episode on the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which you just listened to, and you stayed behind the credits, because I don't know what you're expecting, some more content out of us. I mean, we talked about that for over an hour. That was a lot of content.
Yeah, it was.
It
We
looks
could
like
talk about it for hours.
Dakota is motioning to play Breath of the Wild right now.
There you go, bro.
Hand it over. I want to play this
That's
game.
right. That's right. That's right.
As always, we're chilling with Bo Maddox and Robert Ortegon.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, we got to deal with these hoes again.
This motherfucker. God damn it.
And we actually had you guys on mics for this episode, too, and that was pretty cool, letting you chime in whenever you wanted.
Yeah, even though I was kind of lost in the game a little bit.
That's okay. That's what we
Yeah.
want. We want you guys to play the games while we're talking about the game, and that way we can have it run in the background still, kind of like we have the movies.
Bo! I'm sorry. Interjection. You played this game and you didn't even get clothes. You're still naked. You're still naked. You're on top of the tower.
You sick fuck!
You sick.
I wasn't aware that I was supposed to get clothing.
Okay, in the Shrine of
What the
Resurrection, in there are 2 chests you walk by with items in them. How hard is it to not grab the trousers and the clothes?
I don't know.
Bo,
I don't know, man.
What are you doing with your life,
what
Bo?
are you doing with your life? What have you done?
Do you understand life?
I was about to ask that. Do you understand life?
I don't
What is
think
love?
anybody understands life.
What is love?
Baby, don't hurt me.
Baby, don't hurt me.
Guys, what were we just watching before we...
Oh, God.
We were watching Scarecrow.
Scarecrow.
Yeah. Some kind of horror movie called Scarecrow.
Some asylum pictures.
Pretty good. It was pretty good. I liked it.
Not the classic one from the 80s, but asylum pictures, right?
Yeah, the second one had Tony Todd in it.
Yeah, and I was just wondering what the fuck was Tony Todd doing in there? What was he doing there? It's like, I mean, why was he in murder set pieces? It's like, I mean, Jesus Christ.
And we've got a new poster in Section 9 Studios.
Yep.
Yeah, it's,
Holocausto Cannibal.
Terra Firma. I don't know
I
if
don't know,
y'all
like
saw
the whole
that.
time.
Also, yeah, we watched Terra Firma as well. Fucking trauma.
The entire time we were recording this podcast, I could not stop staring at it. Like, it's actually freaky. I have no idea what the hell is going on
for me,
there.
that's just par for the course, man. I mean, shit.
Like, all I see is like this naked chick with blood coming down her. Some, I don't know. It looks like a penis coming out of her mouth. I don't know what it is.
It's a
elbow,
steak.
maybe.
It's a steak, bro.
A steak?
Come on now. Yeah, it's a
You
steak.
can't even tell. But
How
yeah,
can
it's
you
pretty
not
crazy.
tell what that is? That's so clear. It's precise.
Quite precise.
That movie
It's very
scares
precise.
me.
You haven't even seen it yet.
No, and I'm scared to.
Oh, I have such sights to show you, motherfuckers. God damn.
Well, you know what? I'm going to show you 2 girls, 1 cup. Okay?
No.
I'm
Stop it.
fine with 2 girls, 1 cup, bro. I mean, that doesn't faze me at all, man. Come on now.
I don't know if I can say it.
We
on
watch
live
trauma
television.
film. We watch trauma films. Come on now.
Yeah.
Am I allowed
Seriously.
to say one man, one jar on live television?
Oh God.
I say television, but
Yeah, that's quite a thing. Yeah.
it's terrible.
Guys, we watch Ichi the Killer, so...
Ooh. Yeah.
Oh, that's not that fucked up.
Watch everything once.
I mean, the movie literally starts with a cum shot.
Cum shot.
A cum shot.
the credits.
That was good. That was good.
Cum shot.
Come on, that was my dad joke on that episode.
Does that qualify as a dad joke? Like,
I mean,
seriously?
it's an inappropriate dad joke, but
A dad joke.
it's the same
nonetheless.
category of puns.
Gross.
You know, because I'm a expecting dad, so I have to work on my dad humor and my
Oh
dad
my
bod.
God.
Your dad bod.
My dad bod.
It's on its way.
I need to get dad tats.
Oh wait, no, it's already here.
What qualifies as
Oh.
dad tats?
Shoulder tats.
Shoulder
Metallica,
tats. Oh my God.
Megadeth,
One on each
whatever.
side.
Metallica. This motherfucker.
Megadeth, CFH tats.
A Harley Davidson on one arm.
Oh my God.
I like how I motion to my shoulders, but they can't see me.
They can't see you.
No, they can't see you, and
The government can.
Yes, they can. Through your
Oh
iPhone.
yeah,
And they put drugs in your food.
Isn't that so? All the high fructose corn syrup. God damn it.
I'll believe it. I cut myself off soda, actually, for the most part. I treat myself once in a while, but
Yeah.
I treat myself.
You want to know what I cut out? Animal byproducts.
That's your problem.
Boop, intermission.
Stop overloading my goddamn mics, bastards.
Sorry.
fuck?
We just had to protect the world from Bo's vegan preaching.
Oh my god.
What do you say? Meat is murder?
Meat is murder, dairy is rape.
Oh, man.
That's so cliche. That's so.
I don't
hear that
care.
and
I don't
cringe.
care. I
cringe a
don't
little
care
bit
if
just
you
hearing it.
cringe. You're gonna hear it, and I'm gonna make you watch Earthlings. Fucking asshole.
Well,
I
you know
promise
what?
you, no matter what movie I watch, no matter what I do, I will still continue to eat meat and drink dairy.
And I abuse the cuckoos in Zelda.
I abuse the cousins. Oh, that's good.
Always have to abuse the cuckoos.
Gotta get the chickens.
Free the cuckoos. Free them all.
You would like that one mission in Fable 3 where you have to free the chickens?
Yes.
I say free all the chickens. Chickens are decent people.
Chickens are people too?
Yes, arise chicken.
You ever see Chicken Run, man?
Yeah, man. Come on. Haven't y'all ever seen Chicken Run? I mean, Jesus
I
Christ.
barely remember it, but yeah.
Get out of here.
Oh,
Get
whatever.
out of here.
Whatever.
I'm walking
The
it.
Wallace and Gromit
I'm
stuff.
walking here. Damn.
Guys, what's next?
What's next?
What's the next real movie we're doing? Like, not to say that indie movies aren't real movies, but I mean, like, what's the
We're
next
doing.
full-length film?
Well, I think we already went over this in the episode. We're doing Bullet.
Bullet.
Oh yeah, we are
it.
doing Bullet.
Bullet.
Yeah,
Steve McQueen's Bullet.
straight up.
Damn. We're doing No Man's Sky, and then later on, we're doing indie game Hello Neighbor, which is a lot of fun.
Oh man, I'm actually looking forward to that. Hello Neighbor is actually a really good
It's
show,
awesome.
or a really good game, I should say.
Ooh, and you guys are in for a treat for our 420 special.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I don't want to spoil it yet, but
You're gonna love it.
Well, then
It's-
don't.
it's
Oh, sorry.
related
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Zelda.
What are you doing? Why are you even going to tease us?
If you love this game, you're gonna have a love-hate relationship with the next one.
It's
Love
a viewer.
hate relationship, huh?
It's
We'll stick
it's
with
for the
that.
viewers. Everything's for my viewers, all 5 of them.
All 5 of them.
Yeah,
No,
yeah. 5 of them is right.
I'm just kidding. I know. I think we're at like let's check like 34 downloads, and that was I think before I uploaded the infamous episode. So I need to check it out again. But
Yeah,
guys,
like, Collateral Cinema is now at 1,340 downloads.
guys, we don't want to make light of our follower count. Actually, we're so happy with any person that downloads this app, whether you're friend, family, or you're someone I've never met, which actually is kind of even cooler.
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
so happy. Collateral Cinema, Collateral Gaming. We just want to share content with you guys, and we're so happy to do it. I mean, we're having a blast. This is just our hobby, and we love doing this. We love producing content. We love talking about things.
It might be your hobby, but this is pretty much my profession.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Called you out.
I know, man. This is your career,
Yeah, this is professional for me.
but your career is your hobby. I mean, that's the best part. You know what I
Oh,
mean? You're
hell
doing
yeah.
what you
Hell
love.
yeah.
and nothing beats that.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not really work if you love it.
Yeah, seriously.
exactly, and that's more than can be said for our shit job.
Yeah. Fuck all that bullshit.
Damn it.
Well, it's entry level retail, so I can't say anything. I mean, it's the best job I've had. I keep coming back to it, but
It
Yeah.
pays the bills.
it pays the bills. I mean,
Something to eat. Yep.
but
Yeah, gotta have something to eat, right?
as with any retail food service, I mean, there's bullshit, and I'm excited to branch out and have a real job one of these days.
I think I had one of those.
What's that? What's a real job? We're sitting here talking into mics.
Real job. This is a real job. What are
Yeah.
you talking about?
I sure hope so.
Yeah, don't belittle this, man. This
I'm
is
not.
this is following our dreams. Like, you want to sit in an office at 9 to 5? Fuck that shit. You know what I mean?
No.
Unless that's what you
Hell,
like.
hell no. Hell no.
Or
Little
break
cuticles.
your back for some
Cubicles.
asshole.
Yeah, seriously.
Yes.
Fucking assholes.
Guys, we would love to make this our career. I mean, Doug, if this ever picks up, if this shit goes, I mean, I'd put all my time into this. I'd quit my job if we started making money on this.
Well, Ash, that means that we need to start pushing the Patreon and Podbean patron accounts.
yeah, that's right.
And we will be working on our first actual video for Patreon, right, Robert?
Yeah, we will get.
Yeah,
down
it's
to
going to be
doing
like a movie recommendation sort of thing. It's going to be exclusively for patrons. We are going to get merchandise together to start giving to people at various tiers. So look for that very soon, ladies and gentlemen. Patreon.com/Collateral Cinema Movie Podcast. Or I think it might be a C Cinema Podcast.
Guys, that's all the time we have for today. But hey, stay tuned for next week's or next episode's Collateral Gaming Extras.
Extras.
You got it.
All right, guys. We're out.
Laters.
Get out of here. Go.
No, you aren't going to tell me to get out of my studio.
No. I mean the viewers. Like
The viewers, they can stay in the studio. You need to go.
Oh, you just got called out.
I
Boy.
guess I'm the problem.
No, I'm just
Guys-
playing. I'm just
guys-
playing, ladies and gentlemen.
There's nothing else. Why are you still listening?
There's everything else, ladies and gentlemen.
I have the last word. Bye.
Collateral Gaming is an L Company production. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators, are used for educational purposes only, and are fair use. Please don't sue us. We're poor.